Now we're going to get into Chapter 2, or Chapter 1, Section 2, Insightful Listening. So I think I kicked it off, and my personal opinion is that listening is the most powerful skill a salesperson can have to increase trust, build credibility, and improve their success rate with customers. And it also happens to be one of the greatest gaps for most salespeople. Because there's this perception that selling is about talking, when selling really is about understanding, listening, connecting, helping people solve problems, and really building that trust with them. And there's nothing more powerful in building that kind of bond with a human being than listening to them and understanding them and demonstrating that you really truly understand what's important to them and how you can help them. And that's where listening kicks in. So we're just going to touch on listening, and we're going to continue to work on this throughout the next 6 to 8 weeks, and it becomes a critical component in negotiations. Often we can't negotiate because we missed key components of what was said, and it ends up costing us a fortune down the road. So listening has all kinds of implications in how successful we are at building trust, on closing deals, on negotiating higher margins. So I'm going to touch on this as a starting point and give you some things to think about. The most effective thing you can do to improve your listening is to plan. Because if you've planned your conversation, you've planned your meeting, you've thought in advance what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, how you're going to accomplish it, it puts you in an environment where you're more susceptible and more prepared to listen. So planning is an essential component of listening. So plan, plan, plan. Don't be surprised. The fewer surprises you can have, the more prepared you'll be to listen. Number 2, after asking a question, stop and listen, and let them talk until they're done or until they ask you something. Once you ask a question, let them talk until they're done. How do you know when they're done? When they're not talking for a while. Right, and that takes a couple, 3 seconds to realize someone's not talking. It doesn't happen like the second you think they're done. Or they'll ask you a question, which is a sign that you should probably say something. And so one of the keys to listening is really ask the question and stop. Now, why would I say ask the question and stop? What's the alternative to that? What do some people do after they ask a question? They answer it. Some people actually answer their own questions. What else do people do?
I also see when the responses come and you're already formulating in your mind how you want to respond to the answer that the client
already.
Is providing. So you're just anxious to reply and
That's
respond,
right.
And you're so anxious that you just can't wait for them to finish the sentence they're in, and you interrupt them, and that's
right.
where you kill yourself.
And what else happens after you ask a question other than listening? So one is you answer it. What's another one? You ask another one right after the first one. What else do people do? And you'll be amazed when you hear the tape recordings what people really do. What else do people do instead of listening after they ask a question?
They either talk over them or they're doing something else.
Yeah, this is even before they started talking. I'm still talking about, I'm asking you a question before you've begun talking. What else? What are some of the other traps that people have and the things they do? They start embellishing the question. They repeat the question a different way. They give people choices of how they can answer the question. Believe it or not, a lot of this stuff goes on when we're asking questions. Now, why is that?
I've been guilty of it.
Trying to get to the rainbow. Because people don't plan, so they get nervous.
Bingo. That's why they do that. Because they don't do number 1. People do number 2 because they don't do number 1, and now they're kind of, right off the bat, they're in trouble. Back to number 1. If you've planned a great question, then go ahead and ask it and just stop. And if it wasn't a good question, you'll learn, and next time you'll plan a better one. Number 3, after they're done, pause for 2 to 3 seconds, because most of the time, they're actually not done. So this is Dean, to your thing. Don't be in a hurry to cut them off. Wait till make sure they're done. Make sure that it's clear that they're done. Don't interrupt them. Pause 2 or 3 seconds. That's how you know they're done. A lot of times, if someone's done and you look at them, if you're in a face-to-face, they'll continue. Or on a phone, if there's silence for 2 or 3 seconds, they'll continue. It's amazing how you can control the phone with silence to get people to talk. 2 or 3 second power pause has enormous implications on the conversation. So you just got to get comfortable with yourself to say, I can pause for 2 or 3 seconds. And that'll control a lot of the dialogue. Number 4, take notes. I'm a big proponent of taking notes. Whether you're on the phone, on your computer, on a pad, in person, take notes. Because what happens when you take notes, you listen more intently, because what you're doing is you're translating what they're saying from your brain, from their mouth to your brain to your hand to a computer. That translation process focuses your listening more, and you actually prevent from cutting people off, and you become in more of a listening mode that way. It's also, if people talk at about 150 words a minute with gusts up to about 200. But people have the ability to listen at what rate do you think? 600, 700, 800 words a minute. People can listen a lot faster because the brain can just manage a lot more. And so what's happening is, if you're not taking notes and not listening, your brain is taking commercial breaks 1/3 of the, 2/3 of the time that someone else is talking. Now, what's to prevent you from taking a commercial break right at the time when they're saying something important? The only way to prevent that is to actually capture and focus your brain on exactly what they're saying. So there's a correlation between the right combination between listening, taking notes, and making the connection. Plus, the brain is so much more focused, you actually retain much more information if you're writing stuff down, even if you never look at it again. Remember how in school we used to say, write it down? Write it down? Even if you never looked at your notes again, the process of writing it down, the listening, the translation, the writing it down actually increases your retention and memory. It increases it dramatically.
I used to tell people I've got a better memory in my fingers than pencil than I do with my mind. Now it makes sense.
It does. It creates better memory. And in your environment, you guys have so much stuff coming at you. You got to capture the salient, the key bullets, because you got to go back to them sometimes, because now you're going to have 20 more conversations right after this one. And if you don't write down the key bullet points, you're going to miss it. And then when it's time to propose something or negotiate, you're going to forget something that'll cost you a lot of money. So when I'm saying about taking notes, you take the things, listen, and write down things that are key and important, because those things you can use later.